What's up, everyone? Happy New Year. Welcome to the Action and Network podcast presented by BetMGM. Today, we've got our NFL player projections episode for the final week of the regular season, week number 18. I'm Chris Raybon of the Action Network. And joining me, as always, one of the top fantasy rankers in the game, the odds maker, Sean Kerner. Sean, Happy New Year. How's it going?
What's up? Happy New Year. Had another really good week. Went 10-2, I think. So I didn't want 2023 to end, but here's to a great 2024. And yeah, how was your New Year's?
It was good. I think I went 6-3, so no 10-2, but ended on a good
Nice.
note. So I think I was right at 60% again for the year, like size totals props for NFL.
Nice.
So another good year, but year's not over, so let's keep it going. This week, obviously interesting because you have incentives, we have rest. So more things to factor in than usual, but I do know some people who are playing in their fantasy championships in week 18. I don't know why, but
Must be a mistake.
No, definitely. It's not a mistake. Like there's some people just, some commissioners just don't take out the last week. So
Wild.
Yeah. So this is still an important episode for some of you, but even if it's, you're not playing fantasy, obviously props, DFS, all that stuff.
Yep.
Still important. So let's jump into quarterback. Who do you have in your top five?
I haven't even seen it yet. This is going to be fun. Number one. So I have Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, and Kyler Murray.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly how much Hurts is going to play. So I'm actually knocking him down a little. So he's not in mine, but he would be obviously if we knew he was going to play 100%. We'll see. The Eagles, I get they could technically jump up, but that would take the Cowboys losing. So I got Dak, I got Josh Allen, Kyler Murray third, Justin Fields fourth, and then CJ Stroud fifth. Who are you high on?
I am high on Tyrod Taylor against the Eagles. He's my QB 13. He's coming off just a really great game, 319 yards and a touchdown through the air, 40 rushing yards against the Rams. He has the highest big-time throw rate, according to PFF, over the past 2 weeks at 11%. He's just playing really well, and he's an actual functioning, NFL quarterback, unlike Tommy DeVito. I know Tommy Cutlets was fun and all, but Tyrod Taylor is a legit quarterback, in my opinion. So I love him this week. It helps that Darren Waller is back. Waller looks, 100% right now. And they get to face an Eagles defense that has been an absolute disaster. And like you mentioned, they might be resting some key players too. So that's going to only make it even better. So I consider Tyrod, a fringe QB1 with so many, high-end QBs potentially resting this week. I love him this week.
Yeah, he looked really good last week. Aside from that one throw to Saquon on the 2-point conversion, which I don't know what he was thinking on that one, but yeah, he was using his legs. I think that's what really gives him that upside. Because a lot of the other quarterbacks we mentioned, it's Dak, it's Allen, it's Kyler, it's Fields. Like those guys, to keep up with those guys, you're probably going to need some rushing points. So like Tyrod as well. I'm going with a quarterback who does not run though. Derek Carr, probably the first time all year I've been high on him. But with so many quarterbacks probably sitting this one out or not playing the full complement of snaps, I think Carr is an interesting play. I have him as a top 12 quarterback against the Falcons, who are 29th in DVOA against the pass, but number 8 against the run. So they are a pass funnel. Carr's had multiple touchdown passes each of his last 4 games, averaging 2.5 touchdown passes per game over his last 4. So, talked about Carr at the beginning of the year. He kind of takes a while to get the scheme and the new system down. So this is the time of year where if I'm going to invest in Carr, this is it. And, indoor game, always a bonus as well. Shaheed, Olave look like they're good to go. So like Derek Carr this week against Atlanta. Who are you low on?
I'm low on Baker Mayfield. He's my QB 17 against the Panthers. And it might actually seem like a good time to invest in him. He had another good game, 300 plus yards, 2 touchdowns last week. He also has some really good incentives. There's almost too many to list, but he can make a ton of money this weekend if he maintains. It's like top 5 in the NFC or top 10 in the NFL in like a handful of categories. I think he's pretty much locked up in a lot of them. and some of them are efficiency based. So considering this is, you know, a legit like playoff game for them, they can clinch the 4 seed and a playoff berth with a win. I don't think we're going to see anything funky here in terms of him like trying to get incentives. So I can see that, you know, the Bucks just being extreme run heavy here. It was interesting how run heavy they were against the Saints. Even once they fell behind, even the announcers were kind of baffled how run heavy they still were. Then eventually they got down by so much that forced them into a pass heavy game plan. And that's kind of why Baker ended up with such a good line. But this week, you know, against a run funnel defense like the Panthers, I could see Rachaad White just going off here. So it's going to come at the expense of Baker potentially. So he's a guy I just think has a lower ceiling this week as a result, and why he's all the way down to my QB 17 this week.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. That Panther defense also, because they don't have many leads, they don't give up much to quarterbacks. I believe they're giving up the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks in the league. So yeah, tough matchup. Even though it's not a tough matchup, like you wouldn't think it's a tough matchup between a 2-14 team. Tough matchup for quarterbacks. I had CJ Beathard's pass yard under 219.5 against the Panthers. He had a $155 at the half and finished with a $178. Like that kind of shows you how good like how, you know, quarterbacks just aren't putting up numbers.
I wish I got on that too. You just told me 219. That never crossed my mind, but yeah, that is way too high for Beathard, especially against them. Same thing with like Jaron Hall had his prop was like 225. In hindsight, should have crushed the under there, but yeah, this is not a matchup where quarterbacks typically go off either way.
Yeah. So for me, the guys I'm low on, I'm just going to name guys that I think are in danger of potentially not playing a full complement of snaps. Jalen Hurts, you know, he's still the consensus QB2. I think he's endangered because I don't know how much stock the Eagles are going to put into the Cowboys potentially losing, which, you know, we could get some Mariota, especially because Hurts has been kind of gimpy all year. He doesn't look like 100%. So I would think that if they can give him some time off, or at least maybe not throw as much as usual, they probably will. So I think he's a guy I got to be careful for. Jared Goff for the Lions, you know, they're kind of locked into that. They're seeding. Mahomes, same thing. He's almost certainly not going to play. Stafford, the Rams could, you know, 6 or the 7 seed. So that one is, you know, he's QB 14 in consensus. If we get word that the Rams are going to play it, you know, straight, then he would move up. But right now, he's another guy that's kind of on my watch. Obviously, Lamar Jackson doesn't look like he's going to play. Purdy not going to play almost certainly. So just naming some guys that normally would be in, you know, that startable range that I think either you can't rely on them if you're playing this week, or, you know, they're at risk for not playing, you know, your full snaps.
Yeah, so Hurts. So if the Cowboys win, they can't really improve their seeding, right?
No, because they wouldn't win the division either way. Like, so yeah, I believe they would be stuck at 5 unless the Cowboys lose and the Eagles win. That's the only way.
Right. Yeah. So they play at the same time, so they could be scoreboard watching. Where let's say the Cowboys get up by 2 scores, I'd be looking like potential. I don't know if they're going to be offering it because maybe they're ahead of this, but the in-game market for someone like Hurts, like if the Cowboys get up, you know, it's going to correlate with Hurts getting pulled to maybe invest in his, you know, passing yard under or something like that. If the Cowboys get up in a completely different game.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, either way, I don't think he should be ranked QB2 because I do like there's a good chance he doesn't play the entire game, even if he does start. Cause I mean, you could kind of correlate Hurts' snaps to the Commanders' odds of winning the game.
That's what I'm saying. No, if the Cowboys get up big, that's going to directly impact Sirianni yanking Hurts. So it's a unique thing where different games, this is the only week really where it happens, but different games can impact sort of the game script and playing time of specific players. So I think Hurts, QB2, that's interesting for like people that are still in season-long leagues and playing, you know, in the finals. Yeah, that's too dicey to be considering him QB2, but I'm thinking more in terms of just like in-game player props.
All right, let's go to the props. I think I went 2-0. You went 0-2 last week.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I think you got bit by Kincaid and who was the other one? Darn, I'm forgetting now. I think it was Najee. I forget who it was, but either way, I'm gonna go with let's go with Baker Mayfield because I do think people have kind of been riding him. And he is, the Bucs do have to win, but as I mentioned, that Panther defense is such a hard one to get a read on because they're not a good team, but they don't give up many yards because they're not a good team. So I'm going to set Baker's passing yardage prop at 215 and a half.
Wow, I thought I was pretty low. I had it around 230, but 215 does make sense. I'd rather be on his under here, but I'm going to have to take the over. But that is a good line, and it's probably going to be lower than people think. But so if his prop is like 230, 235, you'd consider the under, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The Panthers have given up 216 or more yards in 5 games.
Yeah.
5 games. And 4 of them came in the first 6 weeks. So
wow.
the last 10 games, they've given up a 200 passer just twice in the last 10 games.
Well, they have been playing some really bad quarterbacks lately, but either way, every guy tends to finish below expectations, mainly due to the leading game script. But I did not realize it was that low.
Yeah, and if you want to go further, Baker Mayfield, talk about below expectations. Baker Mayfield as a favorite, I believe, is like 13-25 against the spread in his career. Oof. So yeah, this is not necessarily a big Baker spot. All right, running back, we got top 5.
So I got Rachaad White, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, and James Cook. What a top 5.
Yeah, it's I don't know where to go with this too. I feel like I'm gonna.
Well,
it's gonna
let's
be
hear
totally
what you got.
different. So I got James Conner, number 1.
What?
I don't know.
Oh, I can't even argue with it. I can't argue with it. Like there's no bad top 5 right now.
He's passing the eye test again.
He really is. Yeah.
Yeah. James Conner, number 1. Jonathan Taylor, number 2. Rachaad White, number 3. Travis Etienne, 4, and Breece Hall, 5. So yeah,
nice.
Kyron Williams would be there again if we knew the Rams were going to play it straight, but we don't.
Right.
Taylor probably goes to number 1 if Moss is going to be out again, but we also don't know that. And yeah, it's just a mess beyond that.
Yep.
So who you high on?
So since it's week 18, got to go nuts here. Let's go with Pierre Strong at RB 30 against the Bengals. The Browns clinched the number 5 seed, so they're likely resting starters, but I don't really know what that means with Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt. They could end up still playing and getting the normal snaps, although I would doubt that, or they could just get benched outright, and they could just lean on Pierre Strong to be like the main back here, which I think makes a ton of sense. So we'll know later in the week, but I think if that happens, it's a fantastic spot for Strong. This Bengals run defense is something we've been picking on pretty much all year. They've allowed 3 different running backs to top 130 rushing yards over the last 8 games. So we'll have to see if we can read any tea leaves or get more clarity on this. But I think Pierre Strong could end up being like a RB 2-3 flex option type this week.
Yeah. I told someone that is playing in week 18. I said, hey, watch out for Pierre Strong on the wire because I'm sure he's not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I just think he's going to be that guy that kind of a little sneaky because, like you said, we don't really know. The Browns already use like a 2.5-man committee, so like Strong. Sometimes he's in it, sometimes he's not. But I could definitely see him, playing a lot this week,
and probably just a more run heavy offense because. With Joe Flacco, though, they're more pass heavy, but be PJ Walker this week. It'd be just more run heavy, also. So a lot of reasons to like him.
Yeah, we think. Who knows? Maybe they went PJ just right. But for me, it's obvious. I already mentioned Connor. He's 110 yards from 1,000, so that's another reason I think. Ooh. It's not a traditional incentive or anything that I know of, but I think it would be cool for him to get another 1,000-yard season. I got a comp for James Conner though. Tell me what you think of this. James Conner is the new Frank Gore.
Oh, you think like
just a guy who's never gonna age. Like he looks better and better. When he's old on the Cardinals, than he looked like when he's young on the Steelers.
Yeah, that is true. He looks phenomenal now. I think he'd have to play another 10 years to reach Frank Gore's status.
He looks pretty spry. He looks pretty spry right now.
Yeah, I keep thinking, he's gonna slow down, but I agree. He's like getting better with age. He's like a
Yeah.
fine wine. So we'll see. Yeah, next year. I'm not gonna underrate him at all. Like I think he's still got a couple years left in the tank. But yeah, if it's 2028 and we're still talking about him as an RB2, then he will be a Frank Gore type back. But that's a good comp.
Yeah, just getting ahead of it, like,
Yeah.
because I'm just like, wow, like I'm watching this guy, and it's not even just, sometimes dudes just put up a couple big games near the end of the year, pad stats, but like he just looks good, like every
Yep.
time he carries the ball. For me, yeah. So Connor's one, Seattle is 23rd in run defense DVOA. They've struggled to stop people on the ground, and then I'm going to say Elijah Mitchell. It could be Jordan Mason, but essentially whoever the 49er starting running back is when we get more clarity. They did give Mitchell most of the work last week, although that was still for the number 1 seed. So there's a chance they just put Mitchell in bubble wrap. McCaffrey's already ruled out. Mitchell could go on bubble wrap just because he struggled to stay healthy so much. Then it would be Jordan Mason. But as of right now, it still seems like it would be Mitchell. So, because, when the playoffs come, they don't even use McCaffrey. They don't even use a backup to McCaffrey usually. They're going to play McCaffrey like 100% snap. So they may just use Mitchell, let him kind of catch up and pad some stats. But either way, I think the Niner running backs are, ones to watch because the Niners always beat the Rams. I don't know if, who knows who's resting who or what, but I don't think this Niner team, even if they're resting starters, is by any means just going to put up a dud. They have a decent backup in Sam Darnold. That offense is still a good schemed offense. So I do think it's important to kind of pay attention to who's going to start at running back for the Niners. All right, who are you low on?
Well, I'd hate to do this, but it's Kyron Williams. He's my RB15 right now against the Niners. Obviously, a ton of uncertainty here. And he's got to be the fantasy MVP this year. I would imagine he's the most valuable pick this year. And the Niners probably going to rest a lot of their starters. So someone like Fred Warner being out will just make this an even easier matchup. So I could end up having Kyron Williams as my RB1, but the Rams, you already mentioned, they don't really have much to play for here. They'll either be the 6 or 7 seed. And just McVay is known for not playing his starters at all in preseason, like never. So he does seem like the kind of coach that if he doesn't have to play his starters, he probably won't want to. And even if he does, I can't imagine him wanting to give Kyron, 20, 25 touches here. So I think if he does play, they at least want to limit his workload. Maybe we see more Ronnie Rivers and Royce Freeman here. So if he does play, you got to start him or use him in most formats and things. But when it comes to like DFS or maybe player props, I think his floor is a lot lower this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And same thing. I'll just name some other guys that I'm kind of worried about that the consensus has ranked as RB, higher than I would. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think he's another guy at risk of, not seeing a full workload. I mean, he's just so explosive, and the Lions are pretty much locked into their seeding. So I don't think he should be ranked RB7. And even David Montgomery, he's RB28. That could be risky as well. Just, depends on what the Lions want to do. That's one to monitor. DeAndre Swift at RB10. I mean, the Eagles have 4 backs. They actually had 4 backs active last week, although Penny didn't play. So that's something. If that happens again, I do. This might be a big Boston Scott game. Kenny Gainwell, maybe even Rashad Penny just, gets featured here. So I would not trust him as a top 10 back. Isaiah Pacheco, RB16. I think he'll probably sit. I know Edwards-Helaire is hurt, but they got Keontae Ingram down on the practice squad. They got Piron. Deneric Prince is still around, I believe. So I doubt Pacheco plays. He's been struggling through some injuries this year. Gus Edwards, another one. Might play, but I don't know if he gets a full complement of snaps. If he does, the Ravens. I look back the last time they rested guys in 2019, and it didn't work out well for them. Then they got blasted by the Titans. After they arrested guys and they had to bye. So maybe they play guys, but it was mainly the quarterback that rested in that game. So I think Marquise Brown was the number 1 receiver at the time. He played a decent amount of snaps. So I don't know if any Ravens skill player rests like the entire game or even most of it, but I do think this is the running back rotation's already kind of unpredictable a little bit. So I think this is one where you could see, all three guys get equal snaps or something like that. So Gus Edwards, still not a guy I would prefer to start, in the flex or anything like that, even if he's going to be active. All right. Where are you going for the prop?
Let's just do the battle of our RB1s. So each guy we have ranked number 1 this week. I have Rachaad White. You have James Conner. You should be going with somebody specifically in this, but who will have more half PPR points this week, Rachaad White or James Conner?
Well, since do I get like a half point favor?
Straight up, baby, straight up.
No, but I mean, what if they tie? Like, I at least like you have White first, so you should give me at least like a tenth of a point.
I will give you a 10th of a point. So if they tie, you win. Absolutely.
Ooh, yeah. Jeez. Yeah, because I do feel like I will say I think White has a higher floor just because he's not giving up. He's not ceding many snaps, whereas Conner, sometimes if there's like a lot of pass snaps, he won't play as much. So that's tough. Yeah, I'm gonna still go White, even though I have Conner ranked higher. I think White. Yeah, I think White has a higher floor.
Shit.
So
well, I'm rooting for your number 1 rank then. Damn it.
Yeah. That's
good.
I
need a couple touchdowns from Conner. That'll do it.
Hey, you might get. Although who looked good last week? Michael Carter actually looked really good too. So I don't know. That Arizona line is coming along well, at least. So that's good news for them. But those backs just looking good out there.
Yep.
In AZ. All right. Wide receiver top 5.
Wide receiver. So let's see. CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, and Michael Pittman Jr.
Yep, I got Lamb, Hill, Pittman, Jefferson, and Mike Evans. The Browns, both like AJ and Amon-Ra, just again not 100% sure what the what the playing time is going to look like, so I just knocked them down. But that's something to monitor. Who are you high on?
I'm high on DeAndre Hopkins this week. He's my wide receiver 15 against the Jaguars. They definitely want to play spoiler this week against the Jaguars, but Hopkins is a guy where I think the incentives could come into play. He has some pretty nice incentives here. He'll get $250,000 with 7 receptions. So it's pretty close to what you'd be projecting for him, or it's, at least attainable. So, just getting an extra couple targets to do that is certainly possible. And he gets another $250,000 for 2 more touchdowns. So again, these incentives for, a player who can certainly get there. And in a game where they don't have anything to play for, you're more likely to see some shenanigans between him and, I don't know if it's going to be Tannehill or Levis, but certainly they're going to feed him the ball here. They should anyway. So this is just a situation where I think both things kind of like line up here, and I think he's going to be a great play and DFS props season long. So he's my wide receiver 15 to open the week.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is the Jaguars definitely have something to play for. So I hope they don't like triple team him or something, knowing this, because
certainly possible.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, the Jags haven't been great against the pass. Well, they were earlier in the year. They've kind of fallen off a little. Let's see, what are they? 13th against number 1 wide receivers. So yeah, kind of average.
Yeah, they had like Tyson Campbell and Andre Sisco were out a handful of games. So their secondary is at least healthy now. But they've been kind of shaky in the second half of the season for sure.
And they play so much zone that it's really tough for them to. I mean, they'll do. You could bracket guys, but like a true double team is harder in zone coverage. So yeah, it shouldn't be too much of an issue for Hop. I'm high on Jordan Addison. He is the consensus wide receiver 50. Yeah, he ran around 92% of the dropbacks last week. Now we don't know who's going to start. I'm guessing it's not going to be Hall if they didn't just say it. So I'm guessing they go back to Mullins. But either way, I think like just having him on the field, 90 to 100% of the snaps. He's 146 yards away from 1,000. He's a touchdown away from having 10 touchdowns on a year. So he's a guy that, they could, and he can get points in a hurry, go deep, beat one-on-one. So especially if the Lions are resting guys they can't afford to rest guys on defense. I mean, they can, but if they do, it's going to be just like a cake matchup for the opposition. So this line defense been one of the worst in the league. For the last couple of months against the pass. So I think Addison is sneaky, even if the Vikings have quarterback question marks. Who are you low on?
I'm low on Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's my wide receiver 37. It's against the Cardinals. It's a good matchup. But last week, he bailed out fantasy managers with his 12-yard touchdown catch. That was his only catch last week. This could be a tougher matchup for him, just considering how much the Cardinals use zone. They use zone at the 5th highest rate. He's averaging a full yard lower per route run against zone. Tyler Lockett's the opposite. Tyler Lockett averages more than a yard per route run against zone. So it could be a sneaky bounce back spot for Lockett. Plus, this could just be, a more run-heavy game plan against the Cardinals, a game where the Seahawks could be leading, which means they'll be using less 11 personnel. So JSN's routes run rate might take a bit of a hit here. But overall, I think he's had a solid rookie season. And like next year, I'll be looking to invest in him, especially, if they move on from someone like Tyler Lockett. But just for this week, I would lower expectations just a tad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that the Seahawks, they're probably going to try to run the ball here and get out of there with get out with a win if they can and not go too crazy. But looking forward to JSN going forward next year. So yeah, same thing here. I'm just gonna name some guys I think are could be playing time questions. AJ Brown, wide receiver 4, that's way too high. I think considering the Eagles could pull guys in the middle of the game. Amon-Ra St. Brown, same deal. Lions kind of locked in. Who knows what they're gonna do? Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, they're both top 15 ranked. We don't know what the Rams are going to do, but you make a good point that McVay almost always errs on the side of caution when in the preseason. So, I mean, maybe they just, if you were the 2 seed, I mean, if you dropped to the 7 seed, if you're the Rams, you would go to Dallas. They already got just pasted by the Cowboys earlier in the year. So maybe they play it for real and say, hey, we got to get the highest seed possible. So that in that case, they'd be fine, but just something to monitor. Rashee Rice, I know he's a rookie, but wide receiver 11, he has become one of the most important offensive players on the Chiefs. So not sure if he plays, even though rookies don't tend to sit out as much, but still be a little bit worried about him. And then Devontae Smith, only because he's already banged up. I think he was in a boot, so who knows if he's even going to be healthy enough to play, but he's ranked inside the top 20. Don't think he should be there, even if he is active, because I can't imagine them pushing it too hard with him. He's another guy very important to their playoff chances. All right, let's see. For the prop, let's go Darius Slayton. He's been interesting. He seems to have more big plays with Tyrod Taylor. He's kind of approaching that kind of fringe startability. 3 straight games with 63 or more receiving yards. So let's go with him. Obviously, the prop is not going to be that high, but I'll go 39.5.
Ooh.
For Slayton.
I had 38.5 was my cutoff. I love the matchup. I mentioned, Tyrod's big time throw rates through the roof right now. I'd be willing to invest in his upside. Give me the over here.
Yeah, I think that's the right play.
Yeah.
It is tough to set his line because it's how much of it is Taylor, how much of it is just playing a lot. But either way, I mean, this Eagle team gives up the most production of wide receivers, so another good matchup on paper for him. All right, tight end, who you got in the top 5?
All right, this is a fun one. Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, Jake Ferguson, Evan Ingram, and Dalton Schultz.
Yep, I got McBride, Ingram, Ferguson, Schultz, and Kincaid. So, nice. Laporta kind of, just not sure if he's going to play.
Right.
So, that's the only reason he's not in the top 5. But who are you high on?
So I'm high on Dalton Schultz. He's in my top 5. Must-win game here against the Colts. And both Robert Woods and Noah Brown got banged up. Obviously, Tank Dell's on IR, so it could be just a big Schultz and Nico Collins game this week. Against the Colts defense that uses zone at the highest rate, Schultz typically gets a boost against zone. He also has some nice incentives this week as well. I believe if he gets 6 catches, he gets $250,000. And I think 4 receptions gets him $250,000 too. I need to double check that. That's not why I'm projecting him so high. But just I think with the must-win game, again, we won't see too many shenanigans when it comes to these. But I think he's set up for a big game, and it doesn't hurt that he has some financial reasons to go off here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's in a good spot this week. Just either way, I mean, I think he's one of the top plays at tight end. I'm high on Kincaid. Like him this week. Dawson Knox got banged up, so he's got I think he was in the protocol. He left with a head injury, so I mean, we'll see what happens with that. But either way, I think this is a game where the Bills, must-win game. Bills might have to do a little more throwing than they've been doing. Kincaid did bounce back with 4 catches for 87 yards on 7 targets a week ago. So like him, just with all these tight ends, potentially sitting out, I think Kincaid is back in the mix, especially if Knox sits out this week. Who are you low on?
I'm low on Isaiah Likely. I think, just with the Ravens having clinched the 1 seed, it's, you've already mentioned it. We don't know what they're going to do. I don't think resting starters will be something that applies to Likely. We'll see. If he might be ruled out. If he's ruled out, great. We know not to play him. But if he's active, I would be very careful because he is the type of player I don't think they'd want to play the entire game and risk him getting hurt, with Mark Andrews already out for the rest of the season. So he likely is a key player. If anything, he'll maybe start, play a quarter or two. But I could see them wanting to get someone like Charlie Kohler more work here, get him some reps. So he could end up handling most of the snaps here. So likely he's all the way down my tight end 17 because I'm assuming he's not going to play the full game. But this is just something that we'll have to monitor throughout the week.
Yeah, absolutely. You did start. Even in the blowout last week, Kohler set a season high for snaps and pass snaps. So yeah, we might see more of that this week. For me, it's a few guys. Laporta, obviously, I don't think tight end 3 a bit risky. Kelsey's probably not going to play. Goddard even could be pulled mid game, so tight end 6 I think is a little rich for him. Kittle probably not going to play tight end, so shouldn't be ranked tight end 11. And Njoku, tight end 14, another guy who, he's been playing so well that I don't know if they're going to risk it with him either, because they're kind of locked in to what they're doing. Now, he is like 118 yards away from 1,000. So, maybe he wants to get that. But, he's a guy who just I would monitor at least because, if he's active, that probably means he does want to chase incentives. But if he's not, obviously that's going to be an issue. So, where are we going with the prop?
We are going to go directly to Johnny Munt. That's where we're going. Because he basically took over the TJ Hawkinson role. So curious to hear how you're projecting him. Because he could be, a potential top 12 option this week if you're buying into his usage. But I'm going to set his line at 31.5 receiving yards.
I'm gonna go under. I think he had a bad drop or something last week. But it's odd. I would have thought Oliver would have been the guy, but Munt ran around on 82% of the dropbacks, which is right exactly almost where TJ Hawkinson is. So his Oliver's role didn't change, Munt's did, but quarterback questions. I think this is a Jefferson Addison game. So I'll go under.
All right. That was a risky prop, I know.
It's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
But who knows? But I would not have guessed that he would have continued to play the Hawkinson role. Because he's kind of known as a blocking tight end. He's barely used to get on the field, outside of a few goal line snaps. So
he's flashed at times, but I agree. I thought it was gonna be Josh Oliver, but we can't deny the data.
No. He's two games in a row now. He's been that lead guy. So. All right, that's going to do it for our Week 18 NFL Player Projections episode of the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM. For more great fantasy content from Sean and I, be sure to check out our full fantasy preview episode out right now over on the Fantasy Flex podcast channel. If you're into betting, of course, be sure to check out my weekly betting preview episode every Thursday with Stuckey right here on this channel, as well as our best bets episode each week with Brandon Anderson, Luke Swain, and the other action experts. Also, be sure to check out the Action Network Discord. Link in the episode description, actionnetwork.com for all of our NFL fantasy and betting content, fantasylabs.com for our DFS tools and models. You can find Sean on X at _oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon, or at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this shmoney.